Welcome to our first deep dive, and we're going to be looking at remarkable American authors of African descent.
Hmm.
And to kick things off,
Okay.
we have someone whose words are still so powerful centuries later,
Yes,
Frederick Douglass.
absolutely.
Now, you probably know him as a prominent voice in the abolitionist movement,
A powerful voice.
but today we're going to go deeper
Yes.
into his 1845 autobiography,
Right.
Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave.
Yeah, it's a book that, it's so much more than a personal story,
Yeah.
It's an indictment of slavery.
Hmm.
And he aimed it particularly at those who doubted the horrors that slaves endured.
So you're talking about like American in 1845.
Exactly.
The debate over slavery is raging.
Yeah,
But
there are plenty who don't grasp the extent of the suffering
right.
or choose to look away. And
Yeah.
so this narrative shines a light on that darkness
Hmm.
and forces people to confront the brutal reality.
It's almost like they needed it spelled out for them.
Absolutely.
So Douglass begins his story on Colonel Lloyd's plantation in Maryland,
Okay.
a place where the colonel lives a life of extravagant wealth,
Right.
while his slaves face just unimaginable hardships.
The contrast is really stark.
Yeah.
And he uses that to highlight the inherent injustice
Right.
that's baked into the system.
Mm.
It wasn't just about, individual cruelty.
Yeah.
It was about a system that was designed to dehumanize and exploit based purely on race.
And he doesn't just observe this injustice.
No.
He experiences it firsthand.
Yes.
He sees brutal punishments like the whipping of his Aunt Hester,
Right.
who he describes as this woman who possessed remarkable beauty and dignity.
Yeah. And that event, I think, is so important because it reveals how violence was used, not just to inflict pain,
Right.
but to break someone's spirit, stripping her, tying her up, flogging her in front of others.
Yeah.
It's all a calculated act
Yeah.
meant to humiliate and subjugate. And I think for Douglass, it's a turning point that forces him to see the depths of slavery's evil.
Yeah. It's absolutely horrifying.
It is.
But amidst this darkness, there's a glimmer of hope.
Okay.
When Douglass is sent to Baltimore,
Okay.
it marks a significant shift in his life.
Right.
He ends up living with a new mistress, Sophia Auld,
Okay.
who initially treats him with surprising kindness.
Yeah.
She even starts teaching him the alphabet.
Yeah, I think Sophia Auld is a fascinating character because she represents this
Yeah.
complex interplay of white benevolence
Okay.
within a system that is built on racial oppression.
Yeah.
Her initial kindness toward Douglass
Mhm.
is genuine,
Yeah.
but it's ultimately limited by the societal norms
Right.
that dictate a slave's place.
And her husband, Mr. Auld, steps in and is like, no, you
Right.
can't do this.
Absolutely. He forbids her from
Yeah.
continuing the lessons and argues that it's dangerous and unlawful
Yeah.
to educate a slave.
It's interesting.
That moment is so revealing because it exposes Mr. Auld's fear
Right.
that literacy would make a slave unfit to be a slave.
Right.
And that just exposes the twisted logic at the heart of the system. Knowledge for Douglass becomes a path to freedom.
Right.
And those in power knew it,
Mhm.
and they were afraid of it.
Yeah. And that fear fuels Douglass's determination to learn.
Right.
He realizes that literacy is his key to breaking free,
Yes.
both literally and intellectually.
Yes.
And he starts sneaking lessons from white children,
Yeah.
using whatever he can find as writing tools.
Absolutely.
It's really inspiring to see his resourcefulness.
He embodies resilience in the face of oppression. He takes a system that is designed to limit him
Right.
and turns it into a tool for his own liberation.
Yeah, and it's not just reading and writing for their own sake.
Oh.
When Douglass gets his hands on abolitionist writings
Right.
and speeches,
Yes.
they ignite a fire within him.
Right.
It's like he's suddenly seeing himself as part of a larger movement for freedom.
His personal struggle starts to merge with this larger political awakening.
Yeah.
And reading the words of those who are fighting for abolition,
Yeah.
it gives him a language for his own experience
Right.
and a framework for understanding the systemic nature of slavery.
But his path isn't easy.
Oh, no.
He goes on to experience several cruel masters,
Yeah.
each with their own methods of control.
Right.
One in particular, Mr. Covey, earns a reputation for his brutal slave-breaking techniques.
Covey embodies the absolute worst of slaveholding.
Right.
He's not content with just physical violence. He uses psychological manipulation to crush Douglass's spirit,
Yeah.
working him to exhaustion, humiliating him,
Yeah.
denying him basic human dignity.
Right.
It's all designed to break him down completely.
And Douglass is very honest about how close he comes to giving up hope under Covey's tyranny. He describes feeling the crushing weight of despair, almost losing his will to resist.
But, and this is crucial, even in that darkness, Douglass finds the strength to fight back. There's a pivotal scene where he physically resists Covey.
Right.
And this act of defiance becomes a turning point.
He describes it as a kind of spiritual rebirth.
Yes.
He reclaims his sense of manhood and his will to fight for freedom.
That fight is about so much more than just the physical struggle.
Right.
It symbolizes Douglass rejecting the idea that he is merely property, that he has no right to defend himself. It's a powerful declaration of his humanity and his right to exist with dignity.
It's an incredibly powerful moment.
It is.
Emboldened by this newfound strength, he starts plotting his escape.
Okay.
But it doesn't go smoothly at first.
Right.
His initial attempt to flee with a group of fellow slaves ends in betrayal, capture, and the just heartbreaking pain of separation.
And this failed escape highlights just how high the stakes were. It wasn't just about physical danger.
Right.
It was about the potential loss of everything and everyone you held dear.
Despite the setback, Douglass doesn't give up.
He's resilient.
He eventually escapes to New York.
Wow.
A moment filled with both exhilaration and profound fear.
Imagine finally reaching freedom but still feeling like a hunted man. The psychological scars of slavery run deep.
Right.
And even in the North, true safety remained elusive.
He was free from slavery, but not from the constant threat of recapture.
Right.
It's a stark reminder of the limitations of freedom for Black Americans at the time.
Fortunately, Douglass finds support from abolitionists in New York.
Okay.
Particularly David Ruggles, who helps him relocate to New Bedford.
Okay.
And establish a new identity.
It's a testament to the courage and compassion of those involved in the Underground Railroad. They risk their own lives to help Douglass and countless others
escape to a semblance of safety.
So he arrives in New Bedford.
Okay.
And it's not what he expected at all, you have to remember. Douglass had been told that the North was economically inferior to the South.
Yes.
That without slavery, there could be no real prosperity.
It was a common narrative spread by slaveholders to justify their system.
Exactly.
But Douglass's experience in New Bedford directly challenges that narrative.
He's astonished to find bustling wharves, massive warehouses, people working with a sense of purpose and dignity that he had never witnessed before.
It's a real eye-opener for him. He sees that true wealth and progress don't require the exploitation of others.
Right.
You know, he encounters a society where hard work is valued and individuals have the opportunity to improve their lives.
It's a powerful moment of awakening for Douglass.
It is.
And it reinforces his belief in the inherent injustice of slavery and fuels his desire for a more just world for everyone.
It solidifies his understanding
Yeah.
that the fight for racial justice is intricately linked with the fight for economic justice.
Right.
You know, true freedom, he realizes, requires both.
Determined to build a new life, Douglass throws himself into work, taking on any job he can find, sawing wood, shoveling coal, whatever it takes, to support himself and his wife, Anna Murray, who courageously joined him in the North.
He faces the challenges of freedom with the same tenacity he showed in learning to read and escaping slavery. It's a testament to his unwavering work ethic and his commitment to forging a path for himself as a free man.
But even in New Bedford, he encounters the insidious nature of racism. Despite being a skilled caulker, white workers refuse to work alongside him, denying him opportunities based solely on his race.
It's a harsh reminder that even in the so-called free North, prejudice and discrimination ran deep. Freedom from slavery didn't automatically translate into equality or opportunity.
This experience further fuels Douglass's activism. He realizes that escaping slavery isn't enough. The system itself needs to be dismantled.
He becomes a living embodiment of the hypocrisy at the heart of America's ideals. Here's a nation that prides itself on liberty, yet denies basic rights to an entire segment of its population based solely on the color of their skin.
So he dives headfirst into the abolitionist movement. He attends meetings, devours William Lloyd Garrison's fiery newspaper, The Liberator.
Right.
And is deeply moved by the passionate speeches of abolitionist leaders.
Imagine the impact of hearing white people like Garrison speak out so forcefully against slavery. It must have been incredibly validating for Douglass, affirming that he wasn't alone in his fight.
It wasn't long before he found his own voice within the movement.
Okay.
He began speaking at meetings, sharing his powerful firsthand account of slavery.
Yeah.
And his words resonated deeply with audiences, making him a sought-after speaker.
Douglass possessed a rare combination of eloquence and authenticity.
Right.
His personal testimony, coupled with his sharp intellect, made him a compelling advocate for abolition.
And one of the things that makes his narrative so powerful is his critique of the hypocrisy he saw.
Right.
Particularly among slaveholders who professed to be Christians.
Yes.
He railed against those who used religion to justify their cruelty.
Right.
Who preached love while perpetuating a system built on brutality.
It's a searing indictment of the moral bankruptcy that allowed slavery to thrive.
Yeah.
Douglass called out the hypocrisy of a nation that claimed to be founded on Christian principles while simultaneously denying the humanity of an entire race.
And he didn't limit his critique to the South.
No.
He also called out the complicity of the North.
Yeah.
Pointing out how their silence and inaction, whether through economic ties or simply turning a blind eye, contributed to the perpetuation of slavery.
He recognized that slavery wasn't just a Southern problem.
Right.
It was an American problem. And he challenged Northerners to acknowledge their role in upholding the system and to actively work towards its dismantling.
This willingness to speak truth to power, no matter the audience, is what makes his narrative so impactful and timeless.
It's a quality that continues to resonate today.
Right.
You know, his critique of racism, hypocrisy, and the abuse of power is as relevant now as it was then, reminding us that the struggle for equality is a continuous journey.
We've journeyed with Douglass from his harrowing childhood to his fight for freedom, his intellectual awakening, and his emergence as a leader in the abolitionist movement.
Yes.
But there's one more crucial piece of his story to explore, his transformation into an author.
And this is where we see his genius come full circle.
Right.
He took the very tool that was denied him literacy and wielded it to craft a narrative that would challenge the conscience of a nation. And inspire generations to come.
I mean, it must have been such an incredible risk for him.
Oh, absolutely.
To write and publish his narrative.
In 1845, publishing a slave narrative was incredibly dangerous.
Right.
I mean, if his true identity were discovered, he could have faced recapture.
Right.
And those who helped him escape could have been severely punished.
It makes his decision to publish even more courageous.
Absolutely.
He clearly felt the urgency to share his story and expose the truth about slavery, no matter the personal cost.
You can feel that urgency in his writing. It's not just a recounting of events.
Right.
It's a passionate argument for the abolition of slavery. He wanted to reach the hearts and minds of his readers and compel them to take action.
And he does so by using language very deliberately.
Yes.
He doesn't shy away from the horrific details.
No.
You know, describing the violence and degradation he endured in just stark terms.
He wanted his readers to viscerally understand the brutality of slavery, to feel its weight, to confront its inhumanity. He knew that pulling punches wouldn't have the same impact.
And he's a master at using contrast.
Yes.
Especially when describing the hypocrisy of slaveholders.
Exactly. He juxtaposes their claims of Christian piety and benevolence with the reality of their actions. He shows how they twisted religious principles to justify their cruelty, highlighting the moral corruption that allowed slavery to flourish.
But amidst all this darkness, there's also this powerful thread of resilience that runs through his narrative.
Douglass celebrates the strength of the human spirit. He shows how even in the face of unimaginable suffering, enslaved people found ways to resist, to maintain their dignity, and to hold on to hope.
He talks about the importance of family, community, and faith as sources of strength and solace for enslaved people.
Those bonds were essential for survival. You know, providing a sense of shared humanity and purpose that helped them endure the dehumanizing conditions of slavery.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Douglass's narrative, I think it's important to ask, Why should this story still matter to us today?
Well,
what can we learn from it
in
the 21st century?
Douglass's story is a powerful reminder that the struggle for justice and equality is an ongoing process.
Yeah.
His fight against slavery resonates with contemporary struggles against oppression in all its forms.
It challenges us to confront the legacy of slavery.
Absolutely.
And to understand how its impact continues to shape our society today.
It forces us to examine our own biases, to challenge systems of inequality, and to actively work towards creating a more just and equitable world.
If you haven't already,
I
highly recommend reading Douglass's narrative.
So good.
It's a challenging read.
That is.
But it's also deeply rewarding. And thought-provoking.
And for those who want to delve deeper into this period, I suggest exploring the works of other abolitionists Douglass mentions, like William Lloyd Garrison and Wendell Phillips. Their writings offer valuable context and insights into the challenges they faced in their fight against slavery.
Thanks for that recommendation.
Of course.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive.
Wow.
Into the extraordinary life and work of Frederick Douglass.
It's incredible.
But this is just the beginning of our journey.
Yes.
Through the words of remarkable American authors of African descent.
Looking forward to it.
Be sure to join us for our next deep dives, where we'll continue to explore powerful stories. And enduring legacies.
Absolutely.
Until then, keep reading.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep striving for a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely.